I'm Jeremy. Today's day 314 of reading, dating Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. Rushing POV. Well, not. We are on page 585. Just because it's always 10 minutes. Can't change that. Let's go. 585. Page 585. Thrown forward and pitched headfirst into the substance inside the basin, but his head did not hit the stone bottom. He was falling through something icy cold and black. It was like being sucked into a dark whirlpool. And suddenly, Harry found himself sitting on a bench at the end of the room inside the basin. A bench raised high above the others. He looked up at the high stone ceiling, expecting to see the circular window through which he had just been staring, but there was nothing but dark, solid stone. Breathing hard and fast, Harry looked around him. Not one of the witches or wizards in the room, and there were at least 200 of them, was looking at him. No one seemed to have noticed that a 14-year-old boy had just dropped from the ceiling into their midst. Harry turned to the wizard next to him on the bench and uttered a loud cry of surprise that reverberated around the silent room. He was sitting right next to Albus Dumbledore. "Professor," Harry said in a kind of strangled whisper. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just looking at that basin in your cabinet. Where are we?" But Dumbledore didn't move or speak. He ignored Harry completely, like every other wizard on the benches. He was staring into the far corner of the room, where there was a door. Harry gazed, nonplussed, at Dumbledore, then around at the silently watchful crowd, then back at Dumbledore, and then dawned on him. Once before, Harry had found himself somewhere that nobody could see or hear him. That time, he had fallen through a page in an enchanted diary, right into somebody else's memory. And unless he was very much mistaken, something of the sort had happened again. Harry raised his right hand, hesitated, and then waved it energetically in front of Dumbledore's face. Dumbledore did not blink, look around at Harry, or indeed move at all. And that, in Harry's opinion, settled the matter. Dumbledore wouldn't ignore him like that. He was inside a memory, and this was not the present-day Dumbledore. Yet, it couldn't be that long ago. The Dumbledore sitting next to him now was silver-haired, just like the present-day Dumbledore. But what was this place? What were all these wizards waiting for? Harry looked around more carefully. The room, as he had suspected when observing it from above, was almost certainly underground. More of a dungeon than a room, he thought. There was a bleak and forbidding air about the place. There were no pictures on the walls, no decorations at all. Just these serried rows of benches, rising in levels all around the room, all positioned so that they had a clear view of that chair with the chains on its arm. Before Harry could reach any conclusions about the place in which they were, he heard footsteps. The door in the corner of the dungeon opened and 3 people entered, or at least one man, flanked by 2 Dementors. Harry's insides went cold. The Dementors, tall, hooded creatures whose faces were concealed, were gliding slowly toward the chair in the center of the room, each grasping one of the man's arms with their dead and rotten-looking hands. The man between them looked as though he was about to faint, and Harry couldn't blame him. He knew the Dementors could not touch him inside a memory, but he remembered their power all too well. The watching crowd recoiled slightly as the Dementors placed the man in the chain chair and glided back out of the room. The door swung shut behind them. Harry looked down at the man now sitting in the chair and saw that it was Karkaroff. Unlike Dumbledore, Karkaroff looked much younger. His hair and goatee was black. He was not dressed in sleek furs, but in thin and ragged robes. He was shaking. Even as Harry watched, the chains on the arms of the chair glowed suddenly gold and snaked their way up to Karkaroff's arm, binding him there. "Igor Karkaroff," said a curt voice to Harry's left. Harry looked around and saw Mr. Crouch standing up in the middle of the bench beside him. Crouch's hair was dark, his face much less lined. He looked fit and alert. "You have been brought from Azkaban to present evidence to the Ministry of Magic. You have given us to understand that you have important information for us." Karkaroff straightened himself as best he could, tightly bound to the chair. "I have, sir," he said, and although his voice was very scared, Harry could still hear the familiar unctuous note in it. "I wish to be of use to the ministry. I wish to help. I know the ministry is trying to round up the last of the Dark Lord's supporters. I am eager to assist in any way I can." There was a murmur around the benches. Some of the wizards and witches were surveying Karkaroff with interest, others with pronounced mistrust. Then Harry heard quite distinctly from Dumbledore's other side a familiar growling voice saying, "Filth." Harry leaned forward so that he could see past Dumbledore. Mad-Eye Moody was sitting there, except that there was a very noticeable difference in his appearance. He did not have his magical eye, but two normal ones. Both were looking down upon Karkaroff, and both were narrowed in intense dislike. "Crouch is going to let him out," Moody breathed quietly to Dumbledore. "He's done a deal with him. Took me 6 months to track him down, and Crouch is going to let him go if he's got enough new names. Let's hear his information, I say, and throw him straight back to the Dementors." Dumbledore made a small noise of dissent through his long, crooked nose. "I was forgetting. You don't like the Dementors, do you, Albus?" said Moody, with a sardonic smile. "No," said Dumbledore calmly. "I'm afraid I don't. I have long felt the ministry is wrong to ally itself with such creatures. But for filth like this," Moody said softly. "You say you have names for us, Karkaroff," said Mr. Crouch. "Let's hear them, please." "You must understand," said Karkaroff hurriedly, "that he who must not be named operated always in the greatest secrecy. He preferred that I mean to say his supporters, and I regret now very deeply that I ever counted myself among them." "Get on with it," sneered Moody. "We never knew the names of every one of our fellows. He alone knew exactly who we all were. Which was a wise move, wasn't it? As it prevented someone like you, Karkaroff, from turning all of them in," muttered Moody. "Yet you say you have some name for us?" I do," said Karkaroff breathlessly. "And these were important supporters, mark you, people I saw with my own eyes doing his bidding. I give this information as a sign that I fully and totally renounce him, and am filled with a remorse so deep I can barely—" "Those names are," said Mr. Crouch sharply. Karkaroff drew a deep breath. "There was Antonin Dolohov," he said. I saw him torture countless muggles and non-supporters of the Dark Lord." "And helped him do it," murmured Moody. "We have already apprehended Dolohov," said Crouch. "He was caught shortly after yourself." "Indeed?" said Karkaroff, his eyes widening. I am delighted to hear it." But he didn't look it. I could tell that this news had come as a real blow to him. One of his names was worthless. "Any others?" said Crouch coldly. "Why, yes, there was Rosier," said Karkaroff hurriedly. "Evan Rosier." "Rosier is dead," said Crouch. "He was caught shortly after you were too. He preferred to fight rather than come quietly, and was killed in the struggle." "Took a bit of me with him, though," whispered Moody to Harry's right. Harry looked around at him once more and saw him indicating the large chunk out of his nose to Dumbledore. No more than Rosier deserved," said Karkaroff, a real note of panic in his voice now. Harry could see that he was starting to worry that none of his information would be of any use to the ministry. Karkaroff's eyes darted toward the door in the corner, behind which the Dementors undoubtedly stood, waiting. Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to read page 590. Bookmark, close. Peace out.